Roberto De Zerbi is the new Tottenham Hotspur manager. He has signed a 5-year deal, no relegation clause, and he is here to try and do one thing and one thing only. Forget about the 5 years, it's about the next few weeks. He's got to keep Tottenham in the Premier League and avoid relegation. So today on the Saying Talk Spurs YouTube channel, I've been asking YouTubers, can Roberto De Zerbi save Spurs from relegation? But before we go any further, if you are new to the channel, then drop a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, hype the video as well, and let me know in the comments down below, do you agree with the YouTubers? So yeah, I've given my opinions on Roberto De Zerbi already. I think maybe it was an appointment that should have been done a few weeks back. We all know his temperament, we all know his personality, but what do football fans across the whole spectrum think, whether they're Spurs fans, rivals, content contributors, the lot? I've asked everyone that I know in my contact list, and I mean everyone. There's been no stone unturned. And if your favourite content creator isn't in this video, they probably didn't reply to my message. But literally, I've spoke to so many people, hence the length of this video. So I've just said it in the intro, but first of all, I'll say this bit first. Thank you to everyone who got involved in this video. I was pestering you all like mad because I just want to get an overall view on this whole situation. You know, a new manager coming into a Premier League club, a highly rated manager, and he needs one aim. He's got one aim: to keep Tottenham in the Premier League, to avoid relegation. So thank you to everyone that got involved. And this has taken a lot of work. This has been like hours of messaging and getting back to people and all that sort of stuff. So honestly, I really would appreciate if you did leave your likes, your comments, subscribe and hit the notification bell. We are on the road to 20,000 subs as well. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Let's see what they all have to say then.
Yes, I think he will keep Spurs in the Premier League, but I kind of thought they were going to stay up anyway. The one big positive for this is it is a long-term deal. Any player that wants to stay here next season and play under a manager like De Zerbi is going to have to perform immediately. He does not take any prisoners. He's also an incredible tactician, and he has had Spurs' pants down with this deal. Wow, it's one of the greatest deals any manager has ever secured in football, by all accounts. Obviously, there are some big drawbacks. Some of his previous comments, some of the off-the-field stuff that's already split Spurs fans right down the middle. That isn't great. But I have to say, he should have come in when Tudor came in. He should have come in when Frank came in. He's finally in the building, and I think he will do the job.
If we're talking pure tactics, I think De Zerbi is probably the best option by a long way out of Tottenham's candidates for these final 7 games. I think De Zerbi is a good coach. He plays progressive football. There's no denying that. The problem is this relegation battle isn't just about tactics. It's about fight. It's about getting the players on side. It's about getting your ideas through to the players. It's almost impossible to implement new tactics with 7 games left, especially with a limited Spurs squad with half the team injured. So it's hard to know what De Zerbi would do in such a short period with such limited players available, because I think tactically he's phenomenal, but it's the personality side where the questions of De Zerbi are. You know, I think the Tottenham squad absolutely loved Dash because he was a nice guy, had the squad on side. De Zerbi's not that nice guy. He's tough love. He's going to shout at the players, and I don't know how the Tottenham players are going to respond to that. And maybe they need a bit of tough love, but I don't know how they're going to respond to that. And I think relegation battle isn't just about tactics. It's now about the fight, the spirit, the players playing for the manager, the belief. So that is the question with De Zerbi. It's high risk, high reward. I think he keeps you up. I think he's too good of a manager to get you relegated. I also think Coulda's coming back, Dougie's now back, Burple's back. I look at the fact that he plays a 4-2-3-1. I was actually doing a video myself on how he'd line up Tottenham, and I think you've got Vicario Kinski in goal, you know, Dougie left back, Porro right back, Van der Ven and Romero as centre backs. I know Van der Ven's off there, but we know that he's been good, particularly with a more progressive style of play. I think Van der Ven's pace will be useful. I think De Zerbi will be more progressive. Burple, Gray, Xabi Simons midfield 3. I think Burple and Gray actually passed the ball forward to Xabi Simons, whereas I think Bentancur and Paulinho under Frank was too defensive and we didn't see the best of Xabi Simons, and I think you'll see a better Xabi Simons under De Zerbi. I think you'll see a really electric Kudus under De Zerbi if you wanted him at Brighton. I think he'll probably play Tell on the left and then maybe Solanke up top because he's better ball to feet. De Zerbi's very possession dominant. He's very attacking. I think you've played better football when you actually play with attacking intent rather than sit back. I think it benefits a lot of your better players. So I'm going to say he keeps you up, but he has to get the players on side, and I don't know if he's going to do that. And if he can't get the players on side, then it doesn't.
Okay, let's talk Roberto De Zerbi, shall we? It's a very awkward angle that I'm doing it at, but ignore that because my washing machine's on and it's loud. And I realise I don't have a one black call in my house. I should probably start to change that. Anyway, Roberto De Zerbi, he has now been appointed Tottenham Hotspur manager. Is this what we need? 7 games to keep us up? Maybe not. Maybe. I don't really know at this point. I'm fresh out of ideas. Not trying to be negative, Nelly. Not trying to say it's not going to work. I don't know if it's going to work. I literally couldn't tell you what's going to work when it comes to this football club. I'm out of ideas. I've got nothing left. What I would say about De Zerbi is I think he's a good manager. I think if this appointment would have been made in the summer, had we already stayed up, I'd be all for it. And outside of obviously Pochettino, which is now obviously not going to happen. Do I think that his style of football suits us? Yes, I do. Front-footed. I think it's a style obviously we're very well versed in playing. It's stuff that we want to see as fans. You know, they're playing out from the back a little bit. I'm not entirely sure I'm keen on that because of the personnel or whatever. Yeah, debating the press and attacking style. Stylistically, we fit. We fit. Him as a person, he's very combative. Like all out the board. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if personality-wise it will work long term. And I don't know if it works in the short term. But I like the style of football. So we're onto something there. Again, it wasn't probably something that I felt we needed right now. Obviously, I knew we didn't need Egal. I wanted a safer pair of hands and people that know the club, love the club, understand the position we're in. That's what I wanted for us. But obviously the board, as always, have different ideas. The fact that they didn't try and get him in or couldn't convince him or whatever when it was 12 games to go, they must have offered him something absolutely crazy at this point to come and take it. And I'm sure if we do go down, then he's got a get out jail free card. Do I think this now puts us in a better position to stay up? Well, he's a better manager, so I would hope so. The style of football will probably suit our players more. I don't have to watch that horrid back three with poor right centre-back. Look, if Roberto De Zerbi can get the best out of Xavi Simons, then I'm all for it. The only good performances I've seen of Xavi Simons have been in Europe. I want to see him do well and thrive in the Premier League. And it's been the most frustrating thing because we just don't get that from him. I haven't seen anything to suggest that in the Premier League, and we're 8 months in. Yeah, so I'm on board. I back the team. At the end of the day, like I've said a couple of times now, I don't even think it's necessarily up to who's in charge or whatever. It's like it's actually on these players at this point. Like, and it has been for quite some time. It's what we need of them. If we look at the Forest game, the first half wasn't that bad, but their heads completely dropped as soon as they conceded, and the second half was just abysmal. So it's on this team to get a little bit about them, show up for themselves, show up for the badge, and them to prove a point. I felt after Liverpool that was probably a false dawn, and the Atletico Madrid game at home, and I wanted to see what happened at Forest, and they proved me right that it was a false dawn. So I can't give any more opinion on whether or not we will or won't stay up if this is the right or wrong appointment until I see stuff on the pitch. Once I see that and I see a change, then we can go from there, and maybe that will adjust my opinion. I can be a bit more positive. I'm not trying to be negative, but it's very, very hard to be positive as Spurs fans at the moment, and I will not lie and I will not sugarcoat it, and I won't just be positive because people want me to be positive. I'll always just say my opinion because it is my opinion. When I see some changes on the pitch and we start to look like a football team again, then hopefully that will give me something I can cling on to, because at the moment I haven't had that. But as for De Zerbi, welcome Roberto. Please keep us up. Do your job. And everyone's a winner. Yeah. One normal week of Tottenham Hotspur. That's all we asked for. You know, international break. Always just chaos. Chaos follows us. I literally can't wait for this season to be over. Honestly.
Yeah, what's up, Billie G here. You know what, I actually kind of think now I feel better about staying up than I did before. I'm not like, not going to go into it loads. I'm not massively happy with this managerial appointment. I think it's a disaster waiting to happen long term, but I think in the short term, I do think we'll have enough to stay up now. I think we'll play players in the right position. I think we'll probably play like a 4-2-3-1 like he favoured at Marseille, and I think that really suited our players, or I think seeing some people say 4-3-2-1. I think either way, just putting our players in the right position will have a big lift for our football club. I think Kudos coming back is a big factor as well. And I think Tottenham fans will just want to see some front foot attacking football. I think that's what we're going to get now. So I just really hope, I think a big thing about it, right, is the players will commit more to a manager that is in, here for the long term. I think if we'd have got another interim, particularly I was a bit worried if we got like a Harry Redknapp or a Glenn Hodder who have been here, been at the game for a very long time. They have a lot of Tottenham heritage and stuff, but, just been so long since they're in jobs and the Premier League changes all the time. And, particularly since Glenn Hodder and Harry Redknapp there, it's a massively different league, so I was a bit sceptical about that. But I think Roberto De Zerbi is a very modern coach, an attacking coach that I think will suit us down to the ground. So I think we'll stay up now. I have a really good feeling about the Sunderland game. I think that one might be one that we can win just because, Sunderland have had an incredible season. And I think they've probably achieved everything they need to achieve now. They're going to stay up. They've done the double over their rivals. So hopefully they'll be on the beach. What an amazing debut season that they've had, by the way. And let's hope Tottenham get a couple of wins down here and there. Some big home games to go. Obviously, the first one being against Brighton is pretty massive as well now for De Zerbi and for Tottenham. But I think Tottenham are going to do it. Up the Spurs.
I think realistically, De Zerbi keeps us up just on a morale thing. I think the players will adapt to him. The players will be confident in what we've got. I'm a bit concerned long term. I feel like everywhere he goes, it kind of blows up in like a year or two. I also don't know how long he's looking to stay around. I also don't know what happens if we do get relegated. But if we're answering the question, will he keep us up? Yes. And I don't think it's because of a tactics thing. It's going to take a while for his tactics to come into play. Obviously, how he likes to play, how he sets up his teams. It's usually a case of he's going to have to buy profiles that fit the current squad. And I'd imagine, regardless of where we finish this year, a lot of the current squad is going to move. So the reason I'm confident staying up is I think a lot of our problems come from the previous two managers not really having the respect to the players, not really getting the players going properly, maybe, whatever it was. Whereas I feel like De Zerbi's going to come in, a lot of the big names are going to warm to him. If some of them are leaving, I don't know what the plans are, but with the World Cup coming up as well, it's in everyone's best interest to play at their absolute best now. And with a manager that they're going to respect, a manager's going to put his foot down as well. It seems that from every clip I've watched of him, every time I've seen him at Brighton, that kind of thing, he does what he wants on his terms. Obviously, Tudor seemed to try that. It didn't work, but with De Zerbi being proven in the Prem, we've seen what he did at Brighton. I do have one slight concern, that he didn't start that well at Brighton, but these are completely different scenarios now. Like, Brighton was a project. This doesn't feel like a project. I don't know why we don't use the term relegation as well. No one at the club has mentioned the relegation word. He has been brought in to keep us up. We use a summer target, right? We wanted him in the summer, but we got him now. That's because we need to stay up. Simple as that. He's never been in this situation before. It's a slight concern of mine, but also, I know it's hard to see it right now, but when you compare our playing squad to Nottingham Forest and West Ham and potentially Leeds, if we just pick the right players in the right positions, do we tactically need that much setup? I don't know what De Zerbi's going to do. He can't really go full throttle. He can't really go straight in and say, right, we have to rip everything up and just play how I want to play, because it's going to take longer than 7 games to get there. But our playing squad, regardless of how bad we're playing, realistically, is a top 10 side at absolute minimum. Really, it should be top 8 to top 6. If the players just get confident, which I'm hoping will be the case from his man management, then we should be all right. Don't want to seem like I've given us a kiss of death, but I think we will stay up. I think it really depends on the first couple of games, though. Ask me this question 2 games, we lose the next 2, then I think we're done. But I think we just go and we start well, and I'm hoping this is all like some kind of fever dream. And by game week 37 against Chelsea, it's not in the balance. We're just out of it at that point. Fingers crossed. We are going to need points. We're going to need them quick. Is it Sunderland and Brighton, I think, back to back? They're 2 must-win games. If we get 4 points out of them, then we'll sail off. We'll be all right. The longer this goes on, though, the more we're in trouble. But to answer the question, De Zerbi will keep us up.
Hi, Sonny. Coming to you live from Easter holiday with my kids. But talk to you about Roberto De Zerbi. I've got to say, I don't love this appointment for Tottenham. I think there are lots of good off-field reasons not to hire him. Obviously, there's defence of Mason Greenwood, plus he's humiliated his own players, fallen out with 2 club hierarchies. But just on football terms, I think he's a good coach, but I think it's a bad idea because it's hard to pick a squad with a worse fit for his demands in possession than Spurs right now, who have maybe two good passers between the defence and the midfield. And the league over the last couple of years has been really good at crushing teams who make mistakes playing out of the back. We've seen it with Huertela's Brighton early on. We saw it with Maresca's Chelsea. So he'll be attempting a pretty high-risk approach with a squad that is not suited for it. And to me, you've got a few games left of the season. This is not the time for fancy tactical approaches. This is the time for a simple, organised, defensive setup with a couple of reliable routes to goal. And that is what somebody like Dyche gives you, for example. So none of this is to say that De Zerbi can't keep Spurs up, because the squad is better than West Ham. I mean, maybe that's not true with the injuries, but the squad is better than West Ham's. West Ham have probably a marginally more difficult schedule, and Forest have the Europa League, which could be the defining factor here for these teams. But my biggest concern is that Spurs are acting as if the problem they have here is managerial. We'll just get the right coach in and that will fix everything. And it isn't. They've been building a bad squad over the last few years that's very wonky, that doesn't have the right profiles, especially in midfield, and that is also very injury prone. And with that in mind, taking a huge, expensive swing on De Zerbi maybe works out if they stay up and they had the right pieces this summer, but it could also mean they end up with the highest paid coach in the Championship. So, I don't know, take from that what you will. Good luck.
So, will Roberto De Zerbi keep Spurs up? That is the question. And for Spurs, it's the £20 million question, if not £100 million question at the moment. It's tough. When I look previous to De Zerbi coming in, and I looked at what the fixtures left for West Ham, for Leeds, for Nottingham Forest, even though I think Forest is beating Spurs kind of kept them up. And Spurs' results, I had Spurs going down. I couldn't see them picking up 3 points anywhere, even when facing the likes of Wolves. De Zerbi does change that. He does change that. The issue is, if we were to look at De Zerbi's first 7 games at Brighton, you'd be going down still if he takes as long as it did at Brighton to have a positive impact. And Spurs don't have long whatsoever. I don't know if I fully believe the reports that if he stays up, if Spurs stay up, he's going to stay at Spurs. I don't believe that. I don't see him doing a year in the Championship whatsoever. I think his ego is way too big for that. So that's beside the point. Can I see him keeping Spurs up? Yes, I can see him having an impact on these players. I think I can see him giving them a kick up the arse. I think I can see, certain players who may have felt that Igor Tudor or that Thomas Frank weren't of the level, would look at De Zerbi and the way he looks at football and the way that he wants to play his football as a positive. Whether they need that kind of football right now, I'm not so sure. And actually, De Zerbi has said, and I think he showcased before in games, when they do need to see out a result and when they do need to get a result, and whatever it may be, he doesn't mind playing a defensive side of football. He doesn't mind keeping the ball. He doesn't mind, trying something to get the goal, whatever it might be. So I do think he will keep you up. I think it's going to be close. I don't think he's just going to win every game now for Spurs in the 7 that are remaining. And I think there's a lot that Spurs need to do after that as well. And if you go down, I don't think he'll be the manager. I mean, I don't think he'll be the manager even if you stay up in 2 years' time. His track record, I think, suggests that. So yeah, will he keep you up? You know what? I'll say yes, but I hope not.
Will De Zerbi keep us up, even though we haven't seen a single training session or a single match yet, is bordering on cruel, Sonny. But no, for real though, this is a tough question to ask because I think from what we've seen this season, Tottenham are the team everyone wants to play. And I thought Tudor might switch up a little bit, even if it was to get a couple of wins here and there. That did not happen. They did not respond to that. But one thing I can say for certain is that I think De Zerbi's football is definitely something we would want to see more as fans. And I think the players are more likely going to want to play. So I think that being said, hopefully there's an uptick in their mood in the camp. I think a lot of them seem to be excited for it. And I think that's the most important thing. The problem I had, or should I say the gripe that I had initially with the appointment, is more to do with the timing, not De Zerbi himself. I think if we'd got him in straight after Frank, great. If we'd got him in the summer, great. Obviously, we couldn't necessarily run that risk now. I think with 7 games left, it's difficult because when he comes in halfway through the season, his points per game isn't great because it takes time for his style to develop. And I think Lallana said it. I think Morpay said it on Sky Sports. I think Dunk said it as well. Like, at first, it's really confusing. So I do worry, is it a little bit too little too late? But like I said, I think one thing is for certain, we're going to enjoy the football a bit more. I think our home performances should be much better because at home we almost played way too scared and reserved under Thomas Frank, whereas at least, with De Zerbi, we're going for a possession-based model. We're going to look to play aggressively, which I think is something fans want to see and what the players want to do. So I'm expecting better results at home, especially because, our home games are like what? You got Brighton, you got Leeds, you got Everton. Those are definitely winnable games with the right mindset and the right football. I'm just a little bit worried that I think we all know he's a hothead, and I'm a bit worried he's too far across the spectrum into it because a lot of these players may already be checked out. We're not going to know until we see in training or in the matches. I think a lot of them are so checked out of Spurs in the season. They've already got one foot out the door at Spurs. I think if he goes in all guns blazing, bashing them too much, I think a few of them will turn their heads and just not be bothered. Whereas I think on the other side of it, on the positive side of it, I think a lot of the younger ones like Gray, Bergvall, and so on, I think they're going to be really receptive to him because I think they're going to want to fight for him. But at least we know his aggression is obviously is using it in a good way where he's trying to get the best out of the players. It's honestly a really tough one to call. I do think we stay up by the absolute skin of our teeth, purely because I think home performances will finally improve. So I reckon we'll get 2 to 3 wins for the end of the season, and mate, that's all we need right now.
I think De Zerbi will save Spurs from relegation, and there's a few reasons why. I always said in this relegation scrap, Spurs did not need a manager who was going to come in and sit in a low block because they don't have the players to do so. Romero, Van de Ven, their weaknesses lie in defending their own box. So we needed someone who was going to play to our players' strengths. Now, we have a lot of issues in this squad. One of those issues being the fact we don't have a deep-lying playmaker, someone that can set the tempo and play through the lines in midfield. However, I think part of De Zerbi's system does cover that up a little bit because a lot of those plays through the lines are very pre-planned, they're automated, and he creates a lot of angles for players that make it easier to play in that first phase and then get into the final third. Now, he is going to come in and command respect. His name does hold a bit of gravitas, a bit of kind of aura around it. So there are no questions that I think the players will definitely respond to him. I think where it's going to be up in the air is whether he can instill a confidence in those players, because these players' confidence is on the floor. However, if there is a manager that the players can get behind, a forward-thinking manager that's suited to kind of progressive style of playing, manager that players want to play under as well, because he plays a really, really exciting, innovative, modern style of football, then this is the guy. However, the players are not necessarily suited to what he wants, especially in midfield, like I said. So I think he will have to build those foundations quite slowly. We're not going to see the final end product of De Zerbi ball initially, but I think we'll see a lot of those patterns. And like we saw under Ange in those first 10 games, those pre-planned patterns where players know exactly where their next pass is, they're kind of playing in this automated planned style, does help players who are low on confidence. And I think that will really, really help these players. It's almost like the thinking is taken away from them. And De Zerbi kind of is the mastermind behind everything, kind of on a chessboard. He's moving the pieces. So these players should be able to respond to that. Obviously, staying up is priority right now. And it's a big risk because De Zerbi is someone who's a volatile character. But I think these players are going to respond to someone like De Zerbi because of the name and what he carries. The fact he's done it in the Premier League before as well. I really do think this is the right style of manager for this set of players. I don't think they're suited for kind of getting their backs against the wall and defending their own goal. I think they need to be filled with confidence, filled with the feeling and belief that they can go and dominate games rather than sitting back and waiting to try and hit teams on the counter. So I do think that he will keep this team up. Although there's a lot of deficiencies in this squad, I think it's more than good enough to get enough results from now until the end of the season.
So I've been tasked with the question, will Robert De Zerbi save Spurs from relegation? Now, it's funny. You lot all call him RDZ. I don't know, you really nicknamed him. And I find that funny. I was speaking to a few of our other Spurs friends that I know of, and they were saying RDZ. I was like, wow, you've abbreviated his name already. Seems like you like him already. Quite surprised. Thought everyone wanted Poch. But yeah, do I think he will save you guys from going down? Hopefully not. I don't think he will. I think he'll still go down. I think Spurs are a little bit in free fall right now. I think De Zerbi's got the character, which I think everyone would have said if they're sending videos, will say similar to Conte, and how that blend with the board, probably not well. Probably not well at all. So there'll be clashes. There'll be some player egos that'll be hurt from De Zerbi entering training. And do you need that in a time when you're fighting relegation? Probably not. You need someone to uplift the team, someone who understands Tottenham. That's why I was quite surprised. I know like Harry Redknapp was floating around. My personal opinion, it may be of no value being an Arsenal fan, but like, you should have a consortium of managers, consortium of people to be in charge of Tottenham to try and save them, that understand Tottenham. So for instance, maybe a Harry Redknapp, maybe a Ledley King in there, a Jermaine Defoe. How have you let him go all the way to Woking FC? How's he starting his career that low? I'm not saying he should be first team manager, I'm aware of that, but at least be an assistant coach or something. Like Mikel Arteta, when he was with Pep, granted Pep's one of the best managers in the world. Arteta had no experience and went underneath Pep, and now he's doing what he's doing in the Premier League. There's a lot to admire there. I think Jermaine Defoe, I'm not saying he's the next Mikel Arteta, but he got the opportunity to be an assistant to, I don't know, someone like a Harry Redknapp, someone like, sorry, that's the only name that's kind of coming to mind right now, but people that kind of get Tottenham. Surprised they didn't go with that sort of route. Robert De Zerbi is quite a strong character. Yeah. Good luck. Not.
Can Roberto De Zerbi save Tottenham from relegation? I have to wholeheartedly believe that the answer is yes. I've got my football brain on, solely my football brain on. I'm not listening to any outside noise. I understand that there might be some controversy surrounding it, but footballing brain on, is he a good manager? Yes. Does it actually matter what manager we brought in? I don't necessarily think so. I just think the benefits of bringing in a De Zerbi are he's Premier League proven. He's managed to get results from against quite a lot of the current Premier League managers. I think he will walk in and command the respect that he is going to walk in and command. And I think because he signed long-term with no relegation clause, hopefully the players look at that and go, okay, this isn't some guy that's seen an opportunity to come in, have a quick smash and grab with some cash and then get out when things get bad. I think hopefully some of the players, especially the leaders, will look at him committing to long term, especially in the situation we're in now, and go, okay, he's in it for the long run. I'm going to respect him. I'm going to listen to him. And I also think the most important thing is because he is a Premier League proven manager and we have a bunch of Premier League proven players in the squad, a massive problem with us this season so far has been players haven't really been playing in their right position. And that's not the be-all and end-all and the reason we're in this mess, but it definitely hasn't helped. So I think he's not going to come in necessarily and try and influence his tactical, forward-thinking approach immediately because we got 7 finals left. There's no time to do that. But what I think he will do is come in, he'll command respect from the players, he'll make them feel like they're good enough to get through this, and he will pick the right 11, play the right players in the right positions and tell them to go and play football, because that's all we need right now. To be honest, whether it was De Zerbi or a Ryan Mason or a Ben Davis, as long as the right 11 gets picked, they are world-class footballers. And you can, world-class might be a bit of a stretch. They are unbelievable footballers to get to where they've got in the Premier League. Like, you can't be a bad footballer and play in the Premier League. It doesn't happen. So they need a bit of confidence, they need to respect the man in charge, and they need to just go and play with some freedom. And I think De Zerbi's the right man to do that, especially committing long-term, because of all the available options, he was probably the best one to go and get in terms of experience and just, to be honest, I'm speaking with my heart because I have to. Do I think we're going to go and win the next 7 games? No.
I think I'd be deluded to think that. However, I do think we can go and get some results, and more importantly, enough results to keep us in the Premier League. I hate the fact that we have to rely on West Ham and Forest and Leeds and whoever else is around us, but at the same time, we can't really focus too much on them because we've got an even bigger job at hand. Our Premier League status as a football club is everything we are. Like, cool, you can say we're not a big six. We are one of the biggest clubs in the country, in Europe, in the world. We are a global brand. We as a football club deserve Premier League status. We deserve European status. We can't go down. We can't go down. Oh, we can't. We just... Is De Zerbi the right man? I hope so. My heart says yes. My head says listen to your heart. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to sign off.
Hi there from Tokyo. Woke up to the news that De Zerbi, no big shock, that he's been installed as the new Spurs manager. Missed the 37% win rate in the Premier League. Is that an endorsement? I'm not quite sure. But look, he's not going to be able to come in and play the De Zerbi way. Not in 7 games. They can't learn it. Lewis Dunk was complaining that it was far too complicated. So how's this lot going to, how's this lot going to understand it? His first 7 games, I think the most points he's got is 8 at Brighton. I think Benevento, he got 5 points. So that's going to be an interesting one. I think he's just got to go in there and just somehow get back to basics. He cannot be, trying to get them playing his style. It's just going to have to be aggressive and forward-thinking and basically hope for the best, really. The difference is that these players, right, had absolutely zero respect for Igor Tudor, because they knew he was going. How can you have respect for him? They knew. He meant nothing to them. Whereas now, those who think they're staying or think they're going, they're going to have to put up and show up. Otherwise, they're going to be on their way. The good news for me, or great news, if it happens to be true, is that Sandro, much loved Spurs ex-player, is going to be part of the coaching staff along with Nesta. Can you imagine Nesta teaching this lot how to defend? And boy, do they need it. They think they're the nuts, they think they're the bee's knees, but believe me, they're not. I know there's a lot of controversy on this appointment, but I don't know. This is about football, right? This is about survival. Was he my first choice? Absolutely not. But is he better than Tudor? Yes. Is he better than Frank? Yes. His record probably suggests that on the international stage due to his tactics. But we've seen bigger and better managers fail at this club before. Is he Conte Mark II? Probably. You can see him probably having Johan Lang over the desk by the end of the month because something he said, or a player that challenges him. Expect fireworks, expect the unexpected. It will be never a dull moment with him. But we got to throw the dice, and the board have thrown the dice with this club. They've gambled in January and lost. Now they've put it all on black. Come on, you Spurs.
Will De Zerbi keep Tottenham in the Premier League? For full disclosure, my name's James. I'm an Arsenal fan. But yes, I think he will. Ultimately, this is going to sound so stupid. It's going to be the worst analysis you hear on this video. But you just need to get more points than West Ham. And I, sadly, I'll be honest, think you will do it. When I look at West Ham's fixture in the league, where I think they'll beat Wolves, who are resurgent to be fair, on that Friday night. They then go to Palace, they then host Everton, they then go to Brentford, they then host Arsenal, then they go to Newcastle before playing Leeds at home. I think there's a world in which they pick up at best 1 point, maybe 3 points from those 5 games in the middle there. They might beat Wolves, they might beat Leeds, but I honestly think if I had to predict the total points tally they collect from those games, I'm thinking at best 6 or 7, and I have Spurs getting just slightly more. So you're probably wondering where that comes. Well, let's look at the games. You travel to Sunderland. Sunderland isn't the Sunderland of even 2 months ago. I think since losing to Liverpool, they've lost a handful of games there, more recently to Fulham. And I just think, look, I'm not confidently saying Tottenham will win. I think Tottenham might get a point there. Then you host Brighton, De Zerbi with a point to prove. You never know what you're going to quite get from Brighton as well. I think you might win that game. Wolves might be difficult. Villa away then might be difficult. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying any of these are gimmies at all. And I look at Chelsea's away too. You could easily lose all of those or pick up 1 point. So at best, I'm looking at 4 or 5 points up to that. But then you've also got Leeds at home and Everton at home. And I think you're going to pick up probably 2 wins there. So if we're tallying them, because Everton on the final day aren't the same side when they've not got as much to play for, unless they're going for Europe, then that's different. So I'm seeing 3 points against Everton at home, 3 points against Leeds at home, 3 points against Brighton, a draw at Sunderland. So what's that? 10. Basically, I think you're going to get 10 more points. And even if kind of it's not 3 wins, but it's 2 wins and 2 more draws, 8 points, I think that does it. So don't get me wrong, I don't think it's going to be pretty, I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think you're going to nick about 1 or 2 more points than West Ham will, maybe 3 more points, and they just won't quite have enough. I think some of the individual quality there will come to the fore with De Zerbi. And look, De Zerbi, I get the hesitation around him. He's a manager who plays a very particular structure on and off the ball. He wants very particular things, a high press, they're playing out the back. There's very, very intricate instructions. And the question is, how does he get that into his Spurs side in 7 games? But maybe he doesn't need to. Maybe he just needs to free them up. He needs to give them license to play more attacking football. He needs to go to a back 4. He needs to go with a decently balanced side. And suddenly things will just start to look different for Tottenham. Sometimes it can be as simple as that. I think with De Zerbi, what I totally get how strange the appointment can be in so many ways, and I have made content talking about that. I've said that I'm not sure about this. It doesn't feel like a fit for now, and the fact that he's having to be paid, premium to essentially come when he doesn't want the job right now tells you a lot. But I ultimately think he'll come through this, and if he keeps Spurs up, he'll be seen as a bit of a hero, and then you kick on into the summer and into next season. So while originally thinking I'm not sure about this one, I don't quite get why you go for that particular manager right now. Who's better out there? That's probably the big question for Tottenham. I think what you've got is Ange Postecoglou's kind of license and want to play good football. I do think he'll be likeable to the players, honestly, but I also think he'll be someone who is quite strict and has a particular way and is no nonsense in other ways as well. Obviously, I hope it doesn't go well, but I don't necessarily think he'll go well. I just think he'll go well enough. And then next season, from the summer, you start again.
Hello, Sonny Talk Spurs followers. Hell of an evening in South London, isn't it? Apologies for the wobbly camera on the way home. I said on a few platforms now that I think De Zerbi is the right manager for Spurs, but potentially at the wrong time. I do think he should have been appointed in February when Thomas Frank was a dead man walking. It's a big risk, given his style of play, how difficult it is to implement. But having said that, if he can keep them up, and I do back them to get a win the weekend after this at Sunderland, my team, I just think we'll be on the beach now. 43 points, done the double against Newcastle, job done for this season. Then he can build some momentum. But if that goes badly, it's going to be really, really difficult. There's so many players on that side that are very low on confidence. Van der Ven, Romero, Kinskill, Vicario playing out from the back. There is an element of risk to it, for sure. But I think if you'd asked me at the start of the season whether Spurs would be a success if they had De Zerbi as their manager, I would have said yes. So there's an element of they had to do something. There's a guy talking in there as well. Maybe he's talking about De Zerbi too. But yeah, there's an element that they had to do something. But I just think the timing is a bit of a risk. But will he keep them up? I think he will. I want Forest to go down personally. 4 managers in 1 season. Do they deserve to stay up? I'm not so sure. I mean, to be fair, Spurs have had 3 now. But yeah, I'd want Forest to go down. I do think they deserve it on their transfer business, on their recruitment strategy, on the managerial appointments. And I think Spurs just survive. Just.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Egal from Egal Talks Football. And of course, I'm an Arsenal fan, so no love lost with Tottenham. But I really don't think De Zerbi is the right answer for Tottenham Football Club. Let's be honest. At this moment in time, De Zerbi coming in, a manager who plays a very, very distinct style of football that is high risk, high reward. It takes a while for players to get used to it. And with Tottenham only having 7 games to save their season saved themselves from relegation, is this the type of manager you need to come into your club at this moment in time? A man who's quite volatile, a man who previously has had bust-ups with players, management, and people in the backroom staff at Brighton, at Marseille. We've seen this throughout his career. And also, he hasn't lasted long at other clubs in the past. And for you guys to give him a 5-year contract with no relegation clause, that is a big financial risk with everything that's at hand at this moment in time. He's basically guaranteed 7 games to either save the club and have further longer time at the club, or 7 games where things don't go well. And guess what? If Tottenham get relegated, he still gets paid out, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. But at this moment in time, that's what it looks like. So with his style of play, I would expect it to take longer than 7 games for you guys to see an instant impact from this manager. He hasn't had a training session with the players yet. He's going straight into the firing line. I do think it benefits having a Premier League proven manager, but I don't think he's the type of manager to save you from relegation. I view him as more of the type of manager to take a team from A to B. So if he came in the summer, it would make more sense. But for him to come in now, when you guys are desperate for uptick in form, where you guys are desperate to get all the players to get galvanized and behind the manager, where you guys are desperate to get as many points as possible from now to the end of the season, I just don't know if it's the right person to put into this situation. I could see this going left, and I could see De Zerbi being gone come the end of the season, with you guys having to pay out his 5-year contract because you guys went down. And I don't think he owes anything to you guys. Personally, for me, if I was Tottenham, I would have gone with somebody who knows the club or somebody who knows how to deal with relegation. And I know Sean Dyche was being thrown around, but even Sean Dyche, I think, might have been a better short-term answer, because I don't think you need a long-term answer right now. You need a short-term shot in the arm to get you guys going in the right direction, because I do think a lot of these players in the summer, if you do get relegated, are going to be out the window. And if you guys don't play well to start, what's stopping them from getting into a bust-up with the manager? I just think you guys are putting you guys are rolling the dice. And I don't think at this moment in time I would be gambling if I was Tottenham Football Club.
Sonny, it is not looking good. From a Fulham fan who's seen a fair amount of relegations, I like to think I know when I'm watching a relegation team. And when we beat you at the Cottage last month, I just saw the mentality of the players. I mean, Van der Ven, captain, looking at the ground. Every goal you conceded, no one's trying to rally the team. Richarlison and Solanke did look all right, but mate, honestly, De Zerbi, is he the man to galvanise a relegation squad? I'm not so sure. And with that Sunderland game coming up away at the Stadium of Light, not many teams have got a result there. Then you play Brighton at home, De Zerbi against his old team. I don't need to tell you how big that is going to be. I got to stick to my guns, man. I'm really sorry, but from the moment I saw that Craven Cottage game, I said, I think Tottenham are down. West Ham have had a bit of experience down there. Nuno's got more experience managing relegation sides in the Prem. And the West Ham players, I think, know how to dig in. Forest have a great squad as well. Leeds look like with their home form, they're going to be out of it. I think you're still down, mate. I don't think it's the right appointment.
With De Zerbi, I think it can go one of two ways. He's a character, he's someone who has history of falling out with everyone and anyone, including his nan and his dog. But I think at the same time, maybe that sort of aggressiveness off the pitch, that sort of winner's mentality, some may call it, is something that Tottenham potentially need. Now, I know a lot of Tottenham fans and a lot of people in the media were saying, go get Sean Dyche, go get someone who's like this relegation specialist. But I don't think that works for Tottenham. The best way to stay up is to go and get a coach who fits the profiles you have in your squad. And Tottenham have the profiles to play maybe not beautiful attacking football, but higher intensity football, something that includes the press a little bit higher, the back line engaging higher, which I think De Zerbi does bring with players like, like Van der Ven and Herrera. They're not box defenders. If you had Sean Dyche, I think Tottenham would have been relegated, guaranteed, because them two cannot defend in their box, because Van der Ven's not good at it, and Herrera's too rash, to actually sit and defend in his own box. So I think with De Zerbi, like I say, it's going to go one of two ways. Either the personality is going to work, the football doesn't really matter about the football, so to speak. I can imagine you might take a small adaptation of what he usually used to, just for maybe a little bit more of a pragmatic sense. But it's going to be either the players take to it, the fans eventually back him after a result on the pitch, or things go catastrophically downhill, the players fall out with him, and he leaves maybe even before the end of the season, or he leaves as Tottenham are relegated. It's going to be interesting. I think there's some positive news, a bit like Kish coming back and things like that. Archie Gray's obviously been in great form. Love Archie Gray. I think he's someone who will benefit from Roberto De Zerbi being in charge. I think Archie Gray will be playing every single minute, as he should do, really. And he should have done really since the start of the season. He should have been playing every single minute in midfield. I think De Zerbi will allow that. So I think Tottenham stay up purely just because I don't really know. Based on vibes partially, but also the fact that I think this sort of football is probably the best suited to the squad Tottenham have out of the three managers now. You know, with Thomas Frank and Igor Tudor. Tudor maybe a little bit more effort. I didn't think he did anything really too drastically wrong, but obviously the way things went, a change was made, whatever. But yeah, I think this is definitely more suited than maybe Thomas Frank's version of football. So I just can't see Tottenham not picking up at least a win, maybe 2 wins now till the end of the season with De Zerbi in charge. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they went down. So I'm going to sit on the fence. Sorry if you expected more from me.
I think Roberto De Zerbi is a really, really good appointment, and I do think he keeps Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League. I think they've learnt their lesson. They went down the route of appointing an interim manager, someone that was supposed to come in and plug all the holes. That hasn't worked. There's been no upturn whatsoever during Igor Tudor's time at the football club. And so the next appointment was a really, really important one. But it's not just about appointing someone for the next 7 or 8 games. I heard people saying things like Harry Redknapp should be brought in. I even heard Tim Sherwood's name being bandied about. Those guys have been out of the game for such a long time. Tottenham needed to make an appointment that shows that they're serious, not just about surviving relegation, but also about building and getting back to where a club of that size should be. Roberto De Zerbi will bring a brand of football that the Tottenham Hotspur supporters will connect to. And at certain clubs, identity is a really, really important thing. Should it be put above winning? I would argue probably not. But Tottenham aren't really winning, are they? Certainly not domestically anyway. And therefore, I think the style of play and the brand of football is going to be something that is going to help the fans warm to Roberto De Zerbi. I know there's talk about some of the comments that he's made off the pitch, and that hasn't gone down well with all the Tottenham supporters. But in terms of purely football reasons and looking at it from a purely football perspective, this is a guy I think that is a massive upgrade on Thomas Frank, on Igor Tudor, and Tottenham fans should be excited by this. He will keep them in the division. I believe he'll bring enough of an upturn to see them get out of trouble. And I think they'll be fine. And I think, if they invest, and that's the big question mark around Spurs, will they invest? Then I think that Roberto De Zerbi could get them back among the European places before long. Great appointment. And for me, they survive.
Roberto De Zerbi to Tottenham Hotspur. Now, my honest opinion, I think it's a great appointment long term. I think he's a great manager that plays great football with great football ideas as well, and knows how to get the best out of players as well as young talent. However, I do think it might be too little too late, because I do think it's a big ask, for him to save the club with just 7 games to go. However, it is possible, and if he is able to keep them up, then yes, for the long term, I think if he can go into the market, improve that squad, get the best out of the current crop of players, then yeah, he's definitely a manager that can take Tottenham back to where they were, competing for Champions League places, and in a respectable position. However, personality-wise, he is quite erratic. He is a bit volatile. He is someone that can explode at any given moment, kind of like Conte, when Conte was at Tottenham as well. So he does have that personality, and he may clash with the higher-ups of the hierarchy. He is somebody that's not afraid to speak his mind, especially in press conferences, or challenge the club. So it'll be interesting. But in terms of football-wise, I think he plays great football, and if he can quickly get his ideas across to the current group of players to keep them up at the club, then I think it will be good for the long term. But yeah, that's my thoughts on De Zerbi.
Hi guys, I'm Dean Scoggins from The Sun's Tactics Exposed and at Dino Decides, and you know I'm a Spurs fan. So what do we make of Roberto De Zerbi? Will he keep us up? I'm right on the fence. It's been so bad. Under Igor Tudor, it wasn't so much a manager bounce as a manager deflation of that ball, but it's been that bad that I'm struggling to be positive. However, De Zerbi is known for his energy, his full throttle football. He will get into those players this week as the ones that arrive back from international duty. And I dare say that they won't know what's hit them in the first few days of training. From what I hear and the reputation he's had at previous places, some players don't take to it, some players thrive. So he's got only a week to work out which of those players are going to be. Look, we know his style will be a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, but I fear a little bit the time he has in being able to get those messages through to the players before Sunderland away. A positive, though, is that Sunderland will be one of the few teams who do press and who do chase the ball, because at the Stadium of Light, that crowd will expect that to happen, and that might play into Zerbi's tactics. Defenders at Brighton, at Marseille, and at his previous clubs, including Shakhtar, they hang off, they put their foot on the ball, and they sort of goad teams out to almost play a counter-attacking style whilst you've got the football. I've been fascinated by him for quite a few years. He took the Premier League by storm under Brighton, when he was Brighton boss. But I do sort of feel that the Premier League has moved on quite a lot in the last year and a half. You saw those tactics Manchester City employed against Arsenal in the cup final. They don't press. They just had this line of 4 attackers stopping you playing through those lines. And we saw Kepa with his foot on top of the football. I'm a little bit worried we might see that from Romero. And we know that Vicario is not the greatest on the football. However, look, let's be positive. I'm backing De Zerbi to get the new manager bounce and get those 7, 8, 9 points that we're going to need to stay up. So 7 games. Let's hope everybody gets behind him, and let's hope De Zerbi does the job.
Would Robert De Zerbi keep Spurs up?
Well, unique New York. A bit of lunch came up. It's got to look old. Little Man City, you know. As a Manchester City fan, actually, I've never seen us relegated. I think Roberto De Zerbi is going to keep Spurs up. Unfortunately, as a City fan, I desire a Spurs relegation because that would be an automatic 6 points to Manchester City every season they're not in the division. I'm sick of it, sick of losing to them. But I think De Zerbi is the best possible person for this situation in the current market of managers. You tried the average fella, the Igor Tudor, the fireman, to try and put out the fire, but he inflamed the fire. He put water on an oil pan fire. That's bad. That's bad. That is terrible. He will burn the kitchen down. I think De Zerbi will eventually burn the kitchen down, but for now, I think he'll cook up a storm. His first dish will be fantastic. Don't know why I'm using food puns for this, but I mean, De Zerbi is easily placed as the best. He's a high caliber coach. It eventually goes wrong, but it doesn't go wrong from the beginning, and that's important, because he pretty much might only have the beginning to work with. It's not very many games. I think he'll keep them up. He'll keep them up. And I think he'll be a really boring last day, actually, because I think he'll do it pretty quickly. I reckon he'll get 2 wins straight away. Bosh, done. Staying up. Boring. I hope they're relegated so much.
What's up, Sonny? So is Roberto De Zerbi going to speak? What's up, Sonny? Is Roberto De Zerbi going to keep Spurs up? Short answer, no. I don't think he is. That's what my gut is telling me. I think Forest still have arguably a harder run in the Spurs. but they got that all-important win at Spurs before the international break. That absolutely broke the hopes of Spurs fans, didn't it? And now this appointment, which is not popular with the Spurs fan base, and quite rightly, it's split the fan base. It has not brought the vibes up. I just don't see where that good feeling is coming from at Spurs at the moment. 4 points from the last 12 games. No wins this calendar year. We're in April. And the next game is Sunderland away. Got to go to Villa away. Got to go to Chelsea on the penultimate day of the season. I just don't know. I know he's a big character, but I don't know whether De Zerbi's cut out for this. He's not been in a relegation scrap in the Premier League before. He's surrounded by managers who have in this relegation scrap. They all know what it takes. Yeah, my gut is still saying that Spurs are going to go down. Crazy.
Hello, Sunny Sphere. It's Football Henry or Football Joe, formerly of Football Daily. The man who knows everything about football. Not really. Roberto De Zerbi, begrudgingly, I think it's a good hire. I don't really like him. I don't think he's the last 5 years. I don't agree with his self-opinion of his lofty standards when really he hasn't really won anything. However, he does know the Premier League. He's pretty hard-minded. I think the players will respect him. You know what? I've watched a couple of Marseille games this year, and one in particular was the Real Madrid away in the Champions League, and they did look good. They're an exciting team. Paxiao, he gets a lot out of his wingers. So whether or not he can translate that as quickly as possible into a 7-game stretch, I don't know. But when I look at teams like Leeds above Spurs who are struggling, I do think that Spurs can catch them. And with De Zerbi, a fresh urgency and energy, he has managed teams like Sassuolo who have been on the back foot, and that was probably where he had his most formative time as a coach, really establishing his style. So it's not like he's not used to coaching teams in tricky situations like this. So he has experience of that. Yeah, again, I think he's a bit of an arse, but he could make the difference. And with Kudus coming back, with Bergvall maybe being played a bit more, coming back as well, and Solanke only getting fitter, I do think you'll have a bit of firepower there to help drag you through. But he just needs to get that defence as sorted as possible. No silly red cards, get that discipline, get that belief in the team, and just make Spurs in the short term very hard to beat and go from there, really. Like, you know, when Xabi Alonso took over at Bayer Leverkusen, they were in a tough spot, and they played different football at first under him than when they went and won the league. So I think De Zerbi will be wise to that. But yeah, the 5-year thing is just a complete joke, and he's not going to be there for that long. But maybe Spurs is his level, and maybe De Zerbi, maybe it's a match made in heaven. I don't know, but I think you might be all right by the skin of your teeth. I think Leeds are slowly teetering towards the drop. That's my thoughts.
Can Roberto De Zerbi keep Spurs up? The simple answer is he can, and I think he will, by the skin of his teeth. And it's an interesting appointment by the Spurs hierarchy. We know from his time in English football that Roberto De Zerbi is a combustible manager. He's a manager that likes things his own way, and when he doesn't get his own way, he lets the hierarchy know about it. And I don't know how well that will match up with the current hierarchy of Spurs. And so I'm not too sure I love this appointment, especially because you're giving him guarantees that he's there beyond this season. But I think he'll do just enough to keep the Spurs team up. But you look at the quality of players, they're just lacking. This is a Spurs team that have lost their identity, they've lost their soul. Over the last 4 or 5 years, they've lost their best players. And as a result of that, they find themselves at this position in the table for the 2nd year in a row. Let's not forget the Spurs finished 17th last year. Of course they won the Europa League. Of course they had that night in Bilbao. But they were a moribund, terrible, disgraceful outfit in the Premier League. I think they lost over 20 games. And so De Zerbi's been brought in to not only fix Spurs this season, but also save the club in the long term. And when I just look at his resume, I look at the personality, I look at the man, I don't see it happening. I think Spurs stay up, but I don't think De Zerbi lasts very long in Spurs next season. I think that he's too much of a volatile character, and Spurs are too much of an unstable football club to satisfy his demands and to meet his expectations. And as a result of that, I think that De Zerbi keeps Spurs up this season, but next year we see him get the sack before Christmas.
Will Roberto De Zerbi save Tottenham from relegation? My heart says no, but unfortunately my head says yes. I've just got a feeling he does the job. He keeps Tottenham up. I mean, when you think about it, Tottenham really shouldn't be in this position. It's embarrassing, to be honest, that Tottenham find themselves in a relegation battle with 7 to 8 games remaining of the season. And when you look at their fixtures, they're tough. I compare them to West Ham, Forest, Leeds games. Tottenham have got some tough games. They go to the likes of Chelsea away, Aston Villa away, Sunderland away. It's not easy. But I think with Everton, Leeds and Brighton at home, they can pick up some points. I think they can even get a few draws on the road. It'll be interesting to see how the players take to Roberto De Zerbi's sort of style of coaching. We all know he's quite aggressive, he's quite intense, and he's very particular with his idea of how to play football. But I can actually see the squad sort of getting behind him, the likes of Van de Ven and Romero sort of listening and singing to his tune and leading the rest of the team. I obviously don't want to be right. I'd love to be wrong and say that Tottenham get relegated, but I honestly think it's almost impossible for Tottenham to go down with this level of players, especially after bringing Roberto De Zerbi on a 5-year deal. I mean, what would be better than Tottenham bringing in a manager like De Zerbi on a 5-year deal and then get relegated? I'd love it, but unfortunately, I think Tottenham will just about survive. I think Leeds or West Ham will go down. I can see Leeds tailing off. They've got some tough games. Tottenham, of course, play Leeds as well, which will be a crunch game. So let's see. I can just, I can see De Zerbi getting the job done. But that doesn't give me any joy saying that. So, yeah, come on, Leeds. Come on, West Ham, Forest. You've got a job to do. And if you can make sure Tottenham get relegated and Arsenal get their hands on the Premier League trophy, best season ever.
Roberto De Zerbi, does he deserve the Tottenham job? Or will he get them relegated? The honest answer is I'm not too sure. I think what you got to first look at is his time at Brighton, which I thought on the whole was very impressive. The style he implemented in quick succession there. But the question always was it fully De Zerbi or was it partly the foundations that Graham Potter lay at the club? I don't know. What I do know is that Tottenham don't have foundations at the moment. The foundations have collapsed. The players are in free fall. So the question is, he's got 7 games. Will he come in and try and implement his system, his way of playing, his methods that the players might have to take time to adapt to or learn? Or will he be more pragmatic and find a way in these 7 games, then go into the pre-season? Obviously, there'll be a clear out, get his own players in. That's the question. I think if he goes for option 1, the methodology approach, stick to his principles, there's a lot of players in that team right now who don't want to be there, who think they're too good to be in this situation, and they might not take it on board. That would be my worry. So it depends. If he's pragmatic and he finds a way, I think he could get out of it. If not, I think he'll go down. Sorry, mate.
Do I think Spurs are going to go down? Man, that is a real tough one. I'll tell you where I'll start. Did I have them to go down 2 weeks ago? Yes. Yes, I did. On the condition it was Egal Tudor that was in charge, because let me tell you, whoever made that appointment made an absolute blunder. That was a horrendous decision. Not only has he not played in the Premier League, he's never managed in the Premier League, and you want to throw him into the heat of what is probably the toughest battle in the league. I would argue tougher to stay in the league than it is to win a Premier League. There is an argument to be had there, and you want to throw someone with absolutely no English football experience in there. It was horrendous. So where we are now is, obviously, he's lost his job. A bit too late, in my opinion. That should have been the 5-1 Atletico we should have went. And we've got De Zerbi. Will De Zerbi keep Spurs in the Premier League? And my answer is yes. I'm seeing a lot of experts come on to TalkSport and talk about this. And who am I to challenge them when I'm going to anyway? They say things like, he needs a pre-season. I'm sorry. That's not, every manager needs a pre-season. We could do with a pre-season. We're not there right now. They have to come in and they have to hit the ground running. So who do you want? Do you want someone with Premier League experience? Yes, he's managed in the Premier League to a high standard. Do you want someone who is the best of the bunch? Yes, and that is De Zerbi. Out of everyone who is potentially available right now, De Zerbi is the best out of everybody. If anyone can keep Spurs in the Premier League, it's going to be him. And I'm hearing this. Do you put your arm around the shoulder of these players? Do you come in and hit the ground running and you know, show them who's boss? Yeah, I think the latter. And I think De Zerbi can do that. He needs to get these players together. We've had the arm around them. We've had every kind of technique. We just need a good manager to keep them in the Premier League. That is what Spurs need right now. And I think De Zerbi is going to do that. So will it be easy? No. Especially with this weekend. What a start that is with West Ham's game. I think it'd be a combination of De Zerbi is a fantastic manager. He needs a couple of wins. He will get those. And West Ham and Nottingham Forest won't win all their remaining games and will drop points. Spurs stay in the Premier League.
because they've hit the emergency button and got a good manager in. That's my take.
So, Roberto De Zerbi, it's almost like part 3 of the Tottenham chaos this season. It's been quite an emotional roller coaster ever since the announcement. I, myself, right now, I'm trying to stay positive because I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan at the end of the day, and all I need right now is for someone to come into this club and save us from relegation. It's actually unbelievable that I'm even saying those words right now. We've seen him under Brighton, and I must say it's been pretty exciting football, which is something that we have not seen at all this season at Tottenham. It's just been completely bleak, lifeless, and there is just absolutely no confidence whatsoever in the players. So we have 7 games. 3 of those we have at home, 4 we have away. Our next game is going to be at Sunderland. This, like I said, I could sit here right now and tell you what I want to see. We need to be creating more chances. We need to be holding possession a lot more. We need to stop putting ourselves under pressure, because I feel like that's all we've been doing this season all the time. But also, it's a mentality issue. These players need to have a boost. And if we do get a win at Sunderland, I feel that could be the catalyst of it all, to build up that confidence for the players right now. Which is why it's also so important for us fans to be supportive and to be there. Because you can just tell how they are when they play on that pitch. There is just nothing. There is just absolutely no confidence at all. We also, another thing that I'm trying to stay positive about is the fact that we have had a lot of injured players and they are to be returning soon. A specific player who I feel I have probably missed the most is Mohamed Kudus, because I think he's such a key player for us. He is incredibly strong. He's able to hold the ball, sometimes a bit too much, but I'm happy with that. I'm happy for them to give it a go and give it a try. But also because I feel he could be that player to help also guide Xavi Simons, who I personally love as well. We just have not seen the best of him. And I just feel that could be another start of something as well. It will be very interesting to see them under De Zerbi as well. So, and I feel this could be, the start of it. 7 games now. We just need to get out of that relegation zone, end of. And if we are to come out of it, I do think that maybe next season, this could be something that we need to take on seriously, and we need to build it all up and start from scratch at the end of the day. So, yeah, I do think if we are to win on against Sunderland, I think there is going to be a bit of relief, and I'm hoping and praying that it will be the start of us to not be in relegation.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by this appointment, the Roberto De Zerbi to Spurs appointment. If I had it my way, I think from a Spurs point of view, I would have liked an experienced Premier League manager with sort of relegation survival kind of stuff on his CV, if you know what I mean, even though I've worded that in a terrible way. So I think like a Sean Dyche type of manager at this stage of the season, I think would have been really, really good for Spurs. Experience, knows how to keep teams up, kind of all of the cliches. You should get them, better organised, well drilled and everything. But perhaps maybe Sean Dyche didn't just want to come in until the end of the season. Roberto De Zerbi, I'm fascinated by this appointment. I kind of want him to keep Spurs up because I think it would be really interesting to see what he does with Spurs next season. I think Spurs get relegated. I think the Forest win, obviously, it was massive for Forest, and I think Forest have got better players than Spurs and West Ham, and I think they stay up. I think Lee's cushion, albeit only being a few points, is so important, given the Spurs and West Ham don't look like they're going to pick up many points between now and the end of the season, and I think Lee's good home form keeps them up. I actually just now have looked at Spurs and West Ham's fixtures, And I just have Spurs going down by a single point. I think West Ham just stay up. This Spurs team looks short of quality. This Spurs team looks short of ideas, lacking confidence. There's obviously so many injuries, and I'm really just not sure where the points come from. Will De Zerbi? I don't think he will, because I don't think with the injuries Spurs have got, and the players the Spurs have got available to them. When I look at Spurs and West Ham and the fixture, I think West Ham just stay up. I really, really do. So no, the answer to the question, will Roberto De Zerbi keep Spurs up? No. I think that's a shame, because I think it would have been really interesting to see what De Zerbi could have done in a new season with a fully fit Spurs squad. Kulusevski, Maddison, Kudus available, because we know he's a coach that gets his teams playing really, really good football. Like, can he come in this short space of time and implement that style of football, that philosophy of football with these players in a short space of time? I don't know. Are these players good enough to play that style of football? I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, to answer your question, no, I don't think he does keep Spurs up. And that's not really a surprise, is it? Given that Spurs are still yet to win a game in 2026.
So is Roberto De Zerbi going to be the man to save Spurs from relegation? My immediate feeling wants to be yes. Now, as a Spurs fan, we all know that what you want to feel versus what you actually probably will end up feeling are two very, very different things. The one thing I will say, I do have a lot more faith in De Zerbi to give us a bit of a new manager bounce, something we definitely didn't have under Igor Tudor. And I would go as far as saying we didn't really get under Thomas Frank either. As a fan, I'm looking forward to watching his football compared to what we've sort of been subjected to this season. It's a lot more attacking, front-footed, possession-based. Hopefully, we'll get us scoring a few more goals, which we've been very, very much devoid of this season. And to be honest, I think if you can start getting our front line, namely Solanke, Tell, bagging a few more goals, things are definitely going to start looking up for us going forward. I trust this guy to be someone who commands the respect of the players. Tudor was sort of supposed to be that quote-unquote hard man who went in and sort of sorted things out and, wouldn't take any nonsense from anybody. But I don't think he really ever got to the level that especially senior players like Romero, Van der Ven particularly respected him. Thomas Frank certainly didn't command the respect of any of those players from day dot. I don't think they really bought into what he wanted to do or him as a person. I think De Zerbi is somebody who's got the credibility behind him to be able to really stand up to those kind of players and, dare I say, put them in their place, in essence. I think as well, the fact that they all know now that he's on a long-term deal, he's not just going to be gone at the end of the season, they have something more substantial to be fighting for then. And if that doesn't get the fire under them to kind of get us through this relegation scrap, then absolutely nothing is. And if this isn't the point where you start properly fighting, you put everything on the line for the club, then to be honest, there's nothing that will. So for me, I'm excited by De Zerbi. I think he's the right kind of appointment. It does stink of how little this board actually knows what they're doing, to go from Ange tactics to Frank tactics to now back to more attacking football in De Zerbi. But if I want to be confident and positive for once in my life as a Spurs fan, I think now's the time. So yes, I think De Zerbi will keep us up and save us from relegation.
I know there's a lot of hype around Roberto De Zerbi, and I know he's a very good manager. What he achieved at Brighton and getting Marseille into the Champions League is obviously really good. But I just think that sometimes we can get carried away by the montages and the interviews with some instrumental music behind it. And I just kind of think that whether Roberto De Zerbi is a top manager or not, I do think that the problem at Spurs is much deeper than whoever the manager is. We're talking about, in my opinion, a toxic culture within the dressing room. And I don't necessarily think that can be saved purely by a manager coming in. We've seen this at Manchester United for a decade, and only now are they slowly turning a corner. And so, for me, it's not whether or not Roberto De Zerbi can keep Spurs up, it's whether the players can pull themselves up by their bootstraps and give Spurs fans and the badge and the club the respect they deserve. And this is coming from a Forest fan. I was at the stadium, I was on the high road before the game, and what Spurs fans did was incredible, and what every fan base should do if their club is struggling. And so, look, although I think that he's a great manager, The players have to do it. Is he good enough to do it? Of course he is. The question is whether these players are. And I don't mean this as a disrespect, and I'm not doing this in some sort of exaggerated way. I think if you asked every Premier League manager which starting 11 they would take, and they had to choose between Forest or Spurs, to a man, De Zerbi included, they'd take Forest. And so I'm really confident Forest are going to stay up, particularly after that massive 3 points at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But it's all about the players. So my question is, can he keep them up? Yes. Will he keep them up? I'm sorry, Sonny, I don't know. I don't know if he will, because I think there's a deeper cultural issue. One thing you can do is look at the fixtures that Spurs have and say, it really should happen. Spurs really shouldn't go down. And you're not in the bottom three yet, so psychologically you're still ahead. So sorry to sit on the fence, but I'm just not sure, because I think the problems there are much deeper. And we know that De Zerbi can be a combustible character. We know that he doesn't take prisoners. And Egal Tudor was that guy, and they didn't respond. Yes, De Zerbi's on another level, but the problems go much deeper.
Hello, Sonny and the Sonny Talk Spurs family. I hope you're all doing very, very well. Will De Zerbi save Tottenham? That is a question you were asking, and I think everybody's asking at the moment, to be honest. And I wish it was a simple answer to give you. Unfortunately, I think we both know that it isn't. There is a lot wrong at Tottenham behind the scenes at the moment, in front of our faces. All of us fans can see the problems that we've been having over the last few months and years, to be honest with you, in the Premier League. In terms of De Zerbi as a manager, and this is me looking past the stuff that's caused controversy on social media and stuff in the last few days since his appointment, he is a good coach. My concern is, can De Zerbi transform this team immediately? Because I look back at his record of Brighton, didn't win any of his first 5 games in charge. Yes, apparently, according to some Brighton fans, they did play well in that time period, but they didn't really pick up many points. I think they got 1 or 2 draws out of those games. And it's a big transition to go from how we played under Thomas Frank and Egal Tudor to be an aggressive, front foot, pressing team under De Zerbi. I'm not entirely convinced that that is something that can be implemented in a week and a half of training. So that's my concern. Having said that, ultimately, I think De Zerbi is one of the best choices that we could have had in terms of quality managers out there. And I know Spurs are looking at this long term, but I can't help but look at the short term. And that's why that question, I guess, is so difficult to answer. Will De Zerbi save Spurs? Because the reports are saying that he would stay with us even if we went down to the Championship, which I'm not entirely convinced about. But it's a very, very interesting question, to say the least. I think he will. I think the first couple of games are going to be crucial. The games against Sunderland and Brighton. Obviously, we have that Leeds at home game penciled in as well. If we can pick up, let's say, a win and a draw in those first 2 games, put 4 points on the board immediately, all of a sudden the confidence is back. The players are behind it. And supposedly these players are excited about the prospect of working under De Zerbi anyway. So I'm hoping all of that, combined with just hopefully what is a new permanent manager bounce, is going to be enough to save us and keep us up. But you know Tottenham as well as I do, it's never that straightforward. However, I feel like we have to hope that this time it is, because the prospect of going down, to me, still makes me feel quite sick, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's see what happens in the first couple of weeks.
Right, will Roberto De Zerbi save Tottenham from relegation? And I think the answer is no. If Spurs are to survive in the Premier League this season, it won't be because of De Zerbi. It'll be because West Ham, Nottingham Forest or Leeds managed to drop too many points that allow Tottenham to remain in the Premier League. And that's not to say that I don't think Roberto De Zerbi will be a good appointment in the summer for Spurs if they do stay up in the Premier League. But I think with 7 games to go, a manager who Lewis Dunk said under that first month at Brighton, he had no idea what was going on, is probably not the right appointment for Tottenham at this moment in time. His results at the start of his time at Brighton were extremely poor. Didn't win in the first 5. And then, as I say, got played as experienced as Dunk, saying that he had literally no clue what was happening. And I think if you look at this Tottenham team, they are so low on confidence. They have some really poor technical players. that if they do play this attacking style of football where it baits the press, I think you're going to see some horrendous mistakes from now until the end of the season from players who probably could do without that, in truth. But then again, they've tried everything. They've tried the defensive manager. They've tried, trying to rocket up them. They've tried whatever. So maybe it is going to be something like this that'll get the best out of them now. As long as Spurs get a few players back from injury, like maybe Mohamed Kudus, for example, I'm sure he'd probably thrive in this sort of attacking system. I think Romero will probably enjoy it. I do have concerns about Palhinha and Gallagher being able to perform this type of football. In fact, I don't really think they'll be able to do it. And the one thing is they don't have time to necessarily get it all together. Now, Spurs do have a little break because they're out of the FA Cup and their first game is against Sunderland at the Stadium of Light. So by then, De Zerbi would have had about a week and a bit to have worked with the players. Is that going to be enough time for him to get what he wants from them? I don't know. I don't think so. And ultimately, I do believe that if Spurs do remain in the Premier League, which is still absolutely possible, it's actually going to be more down to other teams' failures rather than De Zerbi's success. But if they do stay up, I'll be confident that next year Tottenham would probably enjoy a good year under De Zerbi, playing good football. But of course, at this moment in time, all that matters is them staying in the Premier League. And unfortunately, I don't think it'll be down to De Zerbi. I think it'll be the other teams failing if they do remain in the Premier League.
Hi, everybody. Gary Warner over Project Spurs. Big announcement, obviously, yesterday. Roberto De Zerbi on a long-term contract as the new Tottenham Hotspur manager. Our fourth in a year, in under a year, actually, which is absolutely crazy. It just shows the mess that the club is in at the moment. Biggest question being, obviously, can Roberto De Zerbi save us from relegation? There's no doubt about it. He plays some very exciting football. I spent a lot of time yesterday after the announcement looking into his footballing style, his philosophy, interviews with him, and a very motivating manager that brings and plays a nice style of football, but he does clearly need a summer window to install that into everybody. Can he do that in the space of 10 days, 12 days? So it's going to be very, very difficult. I just hope that the players come back from international duty. Some of them have won, some of them have played extremely well, come back with a little bit of freshness in their step, some confidence. They know that they've got a brand new manager and a manager that is here for the long term. Because obviously the official announcement is a long-term deal reported 4 to 5 years. So we need that as a football club. We have to stick to an identity. We can't keep flip-flopping between different philosophies, a pragmatic manager and then an all-out manager, and it just doesn't work. If you're signing managers to be defensively minded, it's not going to be able to work if you just flip it 90 degrees and go all out. It just doesn't work like that. So we have to stick with one style, build our team, our players, our academy, and our management structure in and around that. Now, Roberto De Zerbi seems to be the universally chosen one from the ownership and Joan Lang and Vinay Venkatesham. So we have to back that. $1 million question though, right, is can he save us from relegation? I think we will be okay. I think we'll be okay by maybe 2 or 3 points. We have to beat Wolves, we have to beat Leeds, have to beat Brighton. There's 9 points. We have to beat the teams in and around, especially with Leeds and Brighton. And if we can pick up a draw here and there along the way, things might be okay. But I'm excited by and I'm hoping that the players take to him extremely well, given that he is now going to be the long-term manager. They understand that, and he plays football that a lot of these players can play and seem to enjoy playing, as we saw with Ange Postecoglou last year in the Europa League. So fingers crossed, everything crossed, toes crossed, legs crossed, everything crossed that we survive. And I just hope that this is the start of something exciting and new for the football club.
So Roberto De Zerbi has been confirmed as the Tottenham manager, and if I'm being honest, as a rival fan, I'm a little bit disappointed. I think De Zerbi keeps Tottenham in the Premier League, and I understand there's a lot of uproar from the Tottenham fans given the fact that it's a very, very lucrative deal, a 5-year contract to someone who's quite notorious with not staying at a club for more than 100 games. I've seen the graphic. I understand the hesitation almost, if you like, from Tottenham fans. But at the moment, it really is not about employing a manager who you can see there for 5 to 10 years, or a manager who you think you can really stick by for a decade. It's very simple in my eyes for what Tottenham need, and it's a man who is going to keep them in the Premier League. I get it, it's one of the most lucrative deals for a manager that we've seen in a very, very long time. But it's a drop in the ocean when it comes to how much money Tottenham will have next season if they maintain their Premier League status. It's a very simple thing in my eyes. It is so imperative Tottenham stay in the Premier League. If they don't and they are relegated, for me, barring Leicester winning the Premier League, I think this would be the biggest story in Premier League history, but for all of the wrong reasons, of course. And look, De Zerbi, he'll command the respect of the players. I don't think it's going to be a case of Egal Tudor all over again. These players will know who Roberto De Zerbi is. He has the Premier League experience. He doesn't seem to be someone who flusters under pressure either. So I think this is a very, very savvy appointment. I think, of course, if you're going to get a manager in of this calibre, you know, the other names that were being linked with the likes of Harry Redknapp and so on, but this is an educated move. This is a man who will, I think, as I've already said, keep Tottenham in the Premier League, and that's what it's all about. As I've said, you can worry about next season and the season after if it doesn't start in the way that they want them to. Okay, again, it's another transition, it's another new phase, if you like, if you have to sack De Zerbi next season and get another manager in. But the magnitude of this appointment is astronomical, given the fact that Tottenham have to stay in the Premier League. It will be a financial disaster for so many reasons, as most Tottenham fans will already know, if they don't secure Premier League survival. So yeah, as a rival fan, I must admit I'm a little bit disappointed, given the fact I was quite excited to see Tottenham with that shiny stadium in the Championship. But look, De Zerbi, he's a very good manager. No one can deny that. Premier League experience. Players will respect him. For me, a no-brainer.
As an Everton fan, I feel like the appointment of De Zerbi is quite brave, because we've been in that situation twice. And the first time we got Allardyce, second time we got Dyche. When you're in a relegation battle, the obvious protocol is to simplify things as much as possible, and that is done usually by getting in the defensive manager who knows how to pick up points, not the tactically deep, meaningful manager that is going to completely change the system of playing. The system of playing has already been changed twice this season and is now set to change again. And what you have to think about when it comes to De Zerbi is that in his first 5 games at Brighton, they didn't win the game. They played well, but they didn't win the game. And now's not the time for playing well and not winning games. And that's got to be a fear for Tottenham, as well as the personal things alongside De Zerbi. Does that bring out some unwanted media attention that is not needed, because all the media attention is already negative when it comes to Tottenham? I feel like as a standalone manager, purely on football, he is a good manager. He proved that at Marseille, he proved that at Shakhtar Donetsk, and importantly, we saw him prove it in the Premier League with Brighton. However, it always feels like it's one split decision away from ending in heartbreak, and I feel like that's something that is difficult to manage in a relegation battle, because it needs to be about the football. The risk with De Zerbi is that it becomes about the emotions, and we've seen that in the past with Tottenham and how ugly it can get. Conte being a prime example. One thing I do worry about with De Zerbi is how long his tactics take to implement. When you've only got 7 games to save yourself, having a manager that has really detailed and expertise tactics is a problem, because I just don't see it working straight away. What I will say is, though, Tottenham have got better players than people think. De Zerbi is a manager that obviously holds himself in high regard and wouldn't take the job unless he thinks that they've got the players that suit his football. Having said that, 5-year contract, he would be silly not to take it. But is he a manager that wants to be managing in the Championship? No, he's not. So based on that, you have to think, well, he probably thinks they can stay up. And if he does implement his tactics quickly, they've got a good run time now before his first game to get those tactics sorted and understand what De Zerbi wants from the players and what the players need to achieve. So I think the first game will tell us a lot if they've managed to take on that information quickly or not. However, with it being an emotional situation, with it being Spurs too big to go down, it's always going to be a risk. And I feel like it could go either way. purely on football and players that Spurs have got, I think you should stay up based on the quality of the manager that is coming in alongside the quality of the players they've got. So I feel like if I was pushed, I feel like De Zerbi will keep Spurs up.
Hello, it's Holly from Holly Talk Spurs here. Thank you, Sonny, for asking me this one important question, being, will De Zerbi save us from relegation? If I'm being brutally honest, I have no idea. This season has been an absolute nutcase of a roller coaster. The biggest social experiment I've ever been on. He is our third manager, and for me, I'm just really not hopeful. The only thing I'm kind of clinging on to is the fact that he did really, really well at Brighton. He had a decent win percentage, the best Marseille I've ever had with 57%. He knows how to motivate players, how to get the best out of players, which is something that we really, really need at the moment. Obviously, especially because we've seen players play out of position far too many times. I think that's the biggest thing. If we can see De Zerbi pick out players and play them in their best suited positions, not putting them in places where he thinks they'll work, in their actual natural position, we might be onto a winner. I think that might be a winning formula, because, like I say, he likes this progressive, aggressive possession style football. I mean, we can't even pass a ball together at the moment. So if he can kind of get that ticking in a short space of time, should I say, we might be all right. But at the moment, right here and right now, before we've even seen any players kick a ball under De Zerbi, I still think we're going down. I don't think he can save us from relegation, because when I thought all of us getting together before that the Nottingham Forest game, all of us banding together before the game, creating an amazing atmosphere to get behind the boys, for them to capitulate after one thing once against them and we lose 3-0, that for me is going to take a lot of kind of getting over than just a manager coming in that's had Premier League experience. So yeah, it's a tough one. So to keep it nice, short and sweet, even though I've kind of rambled around the answer, I still really, really am worried that we will go down, and I'm not too sure that he can save us from relegation.
Hello to Sunny Talk Spurs audience. I've been asked a question: is Roberto De Zerbi going to keep Spurs in the Premier League? And my answer is, I bloody hope not, because that probably means West Ham will be the ones going down, which is what I do not want as a West Ham fan. I'm going to paint you a picture. I'm going to... Hello to Sunny Talk Spurs audience. I've been asked a question: is Roberto De Zerbi going to keep Spurs in the Premier League? And my answer is, I bloody hope not, because realistically, that probably means West Ham will go down at the expense, which is what I do not want as a West Ham fan. I'm going to tell you this. I think the problem you will have is it could be too little, too late bringing him in, because when we bought in Nuno, it took him a good 5 games before he even found his feet to even get results and start going on a run. It wasn't until we won that QPR game in the FA Cup that we actually were able to put a run together. We beat Newcastle, beat Burnley. His first 4 games, we played Everton, drew, and things were looking all right. Then we played Leeds, and he decided to play a left-back and right-back, a right-back and left-back. We had a midfield of Andy Irvin, Souček and Guido Rodriguez. It was absolutely all over the place. We lost that game. We lost to Brentford. We lost to Arsenal. And I can tell you right now, there was a lot of West Ham fans who were thinking, this is not the guy. And if we keep this guy and he's doing all this madness, we are going to be in big trouble. Luckily, we stuck with him because it has started to turn around. But it took him a good 4 or 5 games before he even figured out his best team, even figured out what tactics he wanted to play. And I think before even the players started to buy into what he wanted. You've got 7 games left. 7 games. West Ham are 7th in the form table. Nottingham Forest, who knows? They beat you. I don't know if that was an accurate reflection of where they are as a team. Yes, the Europa League is there. There's a chance Nottingham Forest can struggle. I think West Ham will be all right. Maybe I'm a bit biased. Leeds could potentially get sucked in, but I do think they're going to pick up results. They've got Burnley at home, Wolves at home. If they don't win those 2 games, they could be in trouble. 7 games left. Can he come in, rejuvenise the whole entire squad, get them playing some football that will actually get you results in the Premier League? You haven't won a game in 2026. I'm not going to lie to you. It looks bleak.
Yes, people, it's your boy Ashmatic from Spurs Kings TV. Will De Zerbi keep Spurs up? That's what we want to know, man. Listen, I'll be honest with you. Before that De Zerbi appointment, I was like, listen, welcome to the Championship. I'll be dead real. We were looking at player managers. We were looking at Ben Davies. Yeah? Ben Davies. Harry Redknapp. Ryan Mason. And all of these players and managers that we were talking about, I get the sentiment because a lot of people want to feel good. Someone that knows a club. Those were the buzzwords that were flying around in the fan base that I was hearing on and on again. But sometimes it doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? And this league is unforgiving. When you're looking for a manager that hasn't managed in 15 years, it's crazy. And some of these players, they might not respect some of our legends. I know we hold them close to our heart. But reality is, some of these guys would be like, they don't care. They've really checked out. These players that we've got in have been brought for a particular style, a particular system. And that was under Ange Postecoglou. Whether you like him or not, he played attacking football. People are saying, De Zerbi is going to take forever for these players to learn his system. You're going to need about 20 games, 5 games at least. We've got 7 games left. It's not going to work. But if you're only playing 1 game a week and the style of play that you played was only a year ago, it's not like when Ange took over and then you had Conte, you had Mourinho, you had about 3 or 4 managers sandwiched in between. That was about 3 or 4 years since they played attacking football. This is different. This is like within a space of 12 months. So they're not going to forget how to play attacking football when they're being bought from that system. And I'm talking about the majority of players. And I know it's a mixed mash because Thomas Frank came in. Now, Thomas Frank never had the aura. He didn't have the cojones. He didn't demand the respect of a De Zerbi. Now, forget tactics for a second. This guy's passion is Italian, Mediterranean, that hot blood. It's the brave, the straight talking, the forward thinking. That's what these players are going to respond to. I'm not going to say all of them, some of them won't. But the key fundamentals of a De Zerbi team is courage, intensity. Those 2 fundamentals. You could play a 4-2-4. You could play a 4-2-3-1. You could play a 4-3-3. You could play a 3-4-3. You could play a back 5. It doesn't matter. Because Forest play a 4-2-3-1. But what are their principles? Do they risk the ball in the defensive third, meaning in their own half? How do they react when they lose the ball? How do they react when they want to pass through central areas, or do they avoid central areas like Thomas Frank did? You know, do we prefer to cross? And that's why people are saying at this moment, tactics don't matter. They just need the arm around them. We tried that. We tried the arm around approach with Thomas Frank. We tried to whip balls into the box and avoid central areas, and we were more about winning the duels under Thomas Frank, right? So we've tried that. Even Tudor was very similar. I know it was different because he came with a bad guy attitude. He tried that, but he didn't have the buy-in. He didn't have the respect. And the reason why I think it's slightly different for De Zerbi is you got to remember that post that they threw up.
Is Roberto De Zerbi going to keep Spurs up? That is a question a lot of people are asking right now, and rightly so. There's a lot to suggest that he might, but there's also a lot to suggest that he might not as well. For me, it's a no, and it's Preston away for you guys next season. But let's go through the positives first. He's got a very, very big personality. He'll win the players and the fans over very quickly, and that's one of the most admirable things about him. It's very much his way or no way, so he's very, very good at dealing with big egos. His football is brilliant, and to an extent, it's revolutionary. When it comes to baiting the press and playing playing through the press. There is no one better. But the downsides, and here's where you're going to have to strap yourselves in. First of all, his football and his idea took 4 or 5 games for the players to really buy into it. It took a lot of getting used to, and Lewis Dunk publicly came out and said that the first 3 or 4 weeks were really, really difficult for him and the squad. Do Spurs have this kind of time to allow his idea to properly bed in? Absolutely not. They need results here and now. People make the point that Marseille was different, and yes, it was, but he had a whole pre-season, or more or less a whole pre-season. He has a reputation for falling out with higher-ups, and I mean, at Brighton this wasn't the case. But look at his other clubs, and I mean, he literally lost his job at Marseille because of that. And Spurs and the higher-ups at Spurs could barely handle Conte. How are they going to deal with Roberto De Zerbi? He's very tactically stubborn and refuses to change. In a way, it's refreshing and could be a big positive, especially if you stay up, because then you can really buy into his vision and buy players that suit his system and his idea. And of course, a 5-year deal is just not ideal, especially considering he's never stayed in a job for more than 2.5, 3 years. And of course, not to mention the comments about Mason Greenwood and all the other wrong uns he brought in at Marseille. It's already made him quite unpopular with a small majority of Spurs fans. This whole appointment is very, very risky business from Spurs, and I don't think it's a risk that's going to pay off. But the bottom line, Tottenham Hotspur will be playing in the Championship next season, in my opinion.
He's done well at Marseille as well, and I honestly feel like he will give those Spurs players a kick up the backside, which is needed. I think Spurs had the talent. I think they have better talent than West Ham and Nottingham Forest. I think in a short-term span, De Zerbi can get a lot out of these Spurs players to get them out of this relegation battle, because even though Spurs have been terrible for a long time now, I don't think De Zerbi's a terrible manager. It just makes me think, why didn't Spurs do this earlier? They didn't really need to have Egal tutor, but that's Spurs' problem, not mine.
Hey, I'm Marlon from Spurs Kings TV, and Sonny's asked me the question, will De Zerbi save Tottenham? Will he save Tottenham? He's got a very hard job on his hands, don't get me wrong. But the problem that I think I have, and I've said it from a long time, the only people that can get us out of this trouble are the players. So he needs to go and save the players and get the players just playing football. I don't know if it's confidence they need or they just need something. They just need to kick up their backside and realise none of them need a relegation on their CV because it's just can't happen. And for Spurs right now, I think these are a lot of the mistakes of what's been happening with the board over the last 5-6 years. It's just been a spiral, and it's been spiraling out of control, and we are now where we are. But the issue is for us Spurs fans now is, how do we manage to get this team to start playing? Because De Zerbi will take a few weeks. It's not going to be instant. It'd be good if it is instant. Never stay there. Desperate times call for desperate measures. But with De Zerbi coming in compared to Tudor, and I didn't mind Tudor, but with De Zerbi coming in, it just gives us a chance. Whether it's a good chance or or a thing, the risk needed to be taken. And if it is successful, it's a great risk to take. If it's unsuccessful, the problems were not De Zerbi's fault. It's not Tudor's fault. It's partly down to Thomas Frank, but it's down to what we done in the summer and what happened last season and what's happened the season before that and the season before that. But this gives us a great fighting chance, at least. But it's not the manager that will get us out of trouble. It's the players, and it's whether they are good enough to get us out of this trouble. Thank you, Sonny, for giving this opportunity. Big up.
Is Roberto De Zerbi the man to save Tottenham Hotspur? The answer is, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I think, on one hand, bringing in this manager who is incredibly passionate, who will be able to galvanise a team, who is someone who is up for the fight, is exactly what Tottenham need. They need that at the moment. They don't need a tactician. They don't need someone who's going to set up the team in a particular way with the aim of trying to break the opposition down or detailing exactly how matches are going to be won, like they did with Tudor, like they did with Thomas Frank. They need a bit more, and I know it sounds daft, they need a bit more of that Ange about them. They need a bit more of that, right, we're just going to outwork you. We're just going to outrun you. We're just going to be able to press you. We are going to put up a fight. And that's exactly what they need in this relegation battle against the Forest team with the midfield they have. And also West Ham, who seem to have found a little bit of life recently under Nuno. So that is a good thing. The negative to it is, do they have the squad capable of playing the way De Zerbi wants? Like, this is a Marseille team who top 5 for attacking metrics, who, at Brighton and Marseille, both in the top 5 for that metrics, but they also conceded more goals from direct attacks from any team. And Tottenham this season do not have the defensive capabilities to handle those. And that's where the real issue lies for De Zerbi. He likes to play the 3-2-5 when he's in attack and transitions. Does he have the defenders to do that? Not really. Does he have the vast number of attackers that he needs to pull it off? Not really. There's certain individuals who will thrive. I think Lucas Bergvall would do great. Archie Gray would do exceptional in this system. Xavi Simons potentially. Dominic Solanke, I think, will thrive, like we saw multiple players do at Brighton while De Zerbi was there. But like this whole Lewis Dunk thing that keeps coming out, his methods, the first few days of him being at the club, is hell on earth. And are Tottenham going to be... Do they have time to trust in De Zerbi's systems paying off? This isn't like the beginning of the season where you've got a few matches where you can dip in and out and see if things work, test the waters. This is a time where they need immediate results. They need someone who can come in straight away and just get things from this team. He needs to grip them and say, right, we're in a relegation fight. You have to put the work in. They don't have a few weeks to see if the results pay off. It's immediate. It has to be immediate. And that's making me think the other way. Will De Zerbi be good enough? There's this relegation clause which says, he's not fully confident in the fact that he can keep Tottenham up. So if I was leaning one way more than the other, I would say no, De Zerbi is not good enough. But I'm not counting Tottenham out fully yet anyway. I think if any of the 3 teams are going to go down, it would probably be West Ham if I was to take a guess.
It's funny because if for whatever reason I hadn't seen any football this year and you showed me these last 7 games and said, Tottenham, under De Zerbi, this is the squad, do you think they pick up 7, 8 and 9 points? I'd feel pretty confident. But I have watched it this season. I've watched every game. And that's why I don't feel confident. So I've been asked if I think De Zerbi's going to keep us up this season, and honestly, it's such a difficult question to answer. There's so many variables and different assets that affect each other that I'm sitting here scratching my head. On one hand, I do think he's probably the best manager we physically could have brought in at this stage. But he is also a manager that's never had to be in this position before. So is this just a case of too little, too late? There are a lot of flaws in his game tactically. And in even the best side of his game, I'm not sure if we have the profiles and the players to do that. So when you think of De Zerbi, you think of his, bait in the press and the kind of S routes and escape routes and third man runs and passes. But I don't know if it's too late to teach a whole new group of players this. On one hand, these are professional footballers that should be able to adapt. While on the other hand, I've watched these guys for 30 odd games and I don't know if they actually can. And looking at his Brighton and Marseille teams, the sort of patterns of play did seem to be there very early. And with the players being pulled from pillar to post from last season to this, are they even up for learning something new? How badly did these players want it? And I think that's such a big thing. Away from the tactics, away from the games that we need to play and the goals we've got to score, how badly do these group of players want to stay in the Premier League? Because are they looking at other clubs saying, listen, I'm gone in 7 games, I don't really care. Looking at the system and how De Zerbi sets up his teams, there are some major issues, which is making me very, very nervous. Very much bait in the press. It's passing the ball centre-back to right-back to centre-back to keeper, waiting for that opportunity to then overload in certain areas. But that very much depends on the opposition actually pressing you. And they can just sit back and say, listen, you lot can do that. You lot can pass the ball between that. We're not going to press you. And then, now what? I'm not sure how well that system translates to this team, especially when every single pass, cross, tackle is so important at this stage. So to sum up my anxieties and the little bit of hope that I do have, it comes down to when the going gets tough, and it will get tough, it's going to get even worse than it has been. And we try to bait a press and Van de Ven spoons it to Brian Bobby. How much resilience and bite and grit do we have? But I have to remain confident, and we all do. Tottenham stay up. Did De Zerbi keep us up? Yeah, we're staying up.
Will Roberto De Zerbi save Tottenham from relegation? I'll be asked to answer this question, and
I'm going to get straight to the point. I do think that Roberto De Zerbi will save Tottenham from relegation. I think that it's very different to the interim route. I think that now that he's on a 5-year deal, whilst it might seem very ludicrous financially, I think that in terms of getting these players buy-in, I think that De Zerbi could definitely do that, and I think he could definitely show these players that they're in a very, very crucial situation. I don't think all of these players quite realise how serious the situation is, definitely for a club like us as well. I think that De Zerbi can definitely come in and implement his own ideas very well. I think that he could come in and do a much better job than Egal Shooter. And I think now that the club have went down the interim route, I think they're now going down a different sort of pathway and deciding that they're going to go for a long-term project in Roberto De Zerbi. Of course, there are negatives to the situation as well, with De Zerbi not lasting very long at his two recent clubs, Brighton and Marseille. So it's very interesting why Tottenham have offered a manager like Roberto De Zerbi a 5-year contract. But I guess we're going to see how that works out. There's a crucial 7 games to go now. We're in a very, very big relegation battle. So we're going to have to see how that pans out. I mean, it might just be my hope kicking in, or my optimism kicking in, should I add. But I do think Roberto De Zerbi will save us from relegation. I think that it's very different to Thomas Frank, very different to Egal Tudor. I think that De Zerbi could definitely wake these players up, and kind of just show them how crucial the situation is. And I think if he can implement his tactical ideas, I think he's a very good manager tactically. I think there's question marks over perhaps his man management and what he's like with people individually. But I think on the pitch, I think his tactical mind is one of the best. You know, he was very good at Brighton, and got them Europa League football. So I think he could definitely do a great job here. And you know, he's committed himself to the club now as well. So I think the differences between Tudor and De Zerbi is that Tudor, it was very obvious that if he was going to last the full season at Tottenham, he was only going to be here for the remaining games. While De Zerbi, on the other hand, has committed himself to a long-term deal. And it seems like if we are going to stay up, or if we're going to go down, but he will stay regardless. And he sees it as a long-term project. That's my personal take on it. I do think De Zerbi will save us from the drop. I'm hoping he can. Come on, you Spurs.
But let me know in the comments down below, do you agree with anyone in particular? Let me know in the comments down below whose opinion you agree with the most. Is there anyone you disagree with who gave their opinion on De Zerbi? And the key question of can he keep Tottenham in the Premier League? And as I've already said on this video, if you've made it to this point, this far in the video, then please leave your like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, hype the video as well. Until next time, guys, up the Spurs. I'll catch you guys soon. Bye.